Welcome to Preparing for the Unexpected. I'm your host, Alex Fullick, and as always, we like to talk about things related to resilience, business continuity, cyber, anything that helps you, your organization, or your community prepare for, respond to, and overcome adverse situations. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, please feel free. You can find me on LinkedIn. I am the only Alex Fullick there. I'm really easy to find, and I do respond to everything I get. Today, you may recognize that our guest is returning after a little bit of a layoff. Regina Phelps, welcome back.
Oh, Alex, I was laid off and now I'm back. It is nice to be back, my friend. We just have had very busy schedules and we have not been able to align the stars, it seems, for
That's
our month.
right. Both of us been crazy busy in the last little while.
Crazy busy. Have you noticed the world's a little, I don't know, kind of problematic lately?
Just a tad.
Just a thought. Yes. Yes.
And in more than one place too.
Yeah, oh my gosh. Yes, indeed, is the world in such a sorry shape, I'd have to say.
Yeah, and it doesn't seem like it's getting any better at the moment, unfortunately.
No, it does not. No, it does not. Which leads us to our topic, which is a whole
Yes,
other series of things about things not going very well, isn't it?
yes. And we are going to talk about issues related to cyber response.
Yeah. This has been such an important issue for me to talk about with my clients. And we've done, I think now almost 575, I think, cyber exercises in the last, I think we're at 9 years now of doing them out of our 40 plus years. And I just find that people keep doing the same kind of silly things over and over. They haven't really thought through stuff. There's not really good communication in the company about how things would be handled. There's a lot of assumptions. And I thought maybe it'd be fun in the way that you and I like to have fun. It'd be fun to talk about it because I think I'd like to pose some questions and have some dialogue about what I kind of see people doing not so well. I mean, things that they could really improve their process. And that's really what I want to chat about today. So, you up for that?
Oh, sounds good. I like playing the dummy. Not much of a stretch, actually.
Oh, please. Oh, please. Oh, please. Well, the thing I always am amazed about is that many of my clients make a lot of assumptions in relationship to cyber. And so when we design an exercise, this is when I really realized that people were doing things in kind of an odd and siloed way. When we design an exercise, the first thing I often do is I ask, well, how would you be managing this process? And they go, oh, it's going to be completely different. And then I'm like, well, why would you be doing that? So then that led me to ask more and more questions about, well, who is actually in charge if it's a cyber event, really impacting the company widely? So not like a little cyber event where it's maybe, maybe one particular obscure application or it's one maybe intrude. I mean, nothing tiny. I'm talking about something that where you aren't able to do your work, that your organization may be in the public eye, that your employees aren't able to function because they can't get into their applications and their databases, blah, blah, blah. I mean, a big impact.
Mhm.
And they would always say to me, information security or IT. And I said, well, don't you have that crisis management process that I designed for you? And what about that? And they go, oh, but it's cyber. And I thought, oh, okay, that's so interesting. And what I learned is that sometimes people just make an assumption, and maybe it's what's going on in IT and InfoSec, I'm not sure, but they're assuming that who's going to run the event and manage everything is going to be IT and InfoSec. And so what I realized is, oh my God, if that's what people are thinking and that's how they're going to respond to a company-wide event, then maybe we should start talking about this a lot because that makes no sense. Period. So
I've run into some of that same
have you?
thing. Yeah, where if there's a cyber event, who's running it? Well, cyber will tell us what to do. And then you talk to the cyber team. Well, yeah, we're just doing, this one piece of it. This is what
Right.
we do. Okay, what about the rest?
Exactly.
Well, how are you bringing everyone else into this?
Absolutely. Absolutely. How are you bringing everybody else into the party? So that led me to sort of get a group of my clients together and say, okay, let's have a blank piece of paper in front of us, and you tell me for the average, if there is such a thing, cyber-related event, who comes to the party initially. Now, I understand there's lots of attorney-client privilege issues that are going to probably surface, and there might be lots of insurance-related issues, which we're going to talk all about. But there's still that kind of angst, like, okay, who comes to the party routinely, just at the very beginning? And there's a cast of characters that you and I would all know. IT, InfoSec, but then you're going to see obviously legal, regulatory compliance, and communications, and obviously some connection into senior management. So those are 6 folks that you always know are going to be sitting around the table. So I'd say to them, well, great, okay, that's a good starting point. Now, have you ever talked to them about what they're going to do in that first 24 hours? Well, no.
Well,
I said,
we
well,
assume, or they
yes,
should.
or they're going to tell us or something. And I'd say like, okay. This is a problem straight away at the very, very beginning. Whenever you hear the A word, assume you already know that you're toast, right?
Yeah.
So the goal was then for me to my clients to say, okay, great, let's circle the wagons with those 5 or 6 or 7, whatever it is, entities that you always know are going to play in some way. And let's have a little exercise. I don't even like to use the word exercise. Let's have a little workshop about what people would do. And they went, oh, that's kind of interesting. Yes. And there's a requirement before anybody comes to the workshop that we actually identify. So who are the initial players in the first short period of time? I usually give them a 24-hour block of time. Who are those people? List those departments. Great. Now, I want you to identify for me 5 is a good number, of the most common concerns you have. So, stop and think about it. So if you were asked to do, what do you think the top 5 most common cyber concerns might be? What would you come up with yourself? What do you think?
Listening to some of the people that I've heard, I guess one of them would be, what do I tell my clients, customers? What do I do with legal? What am I communicating?
Mhm.
What do I get my users to do or not do? How do I, and this is one of the things that gets forgotten about when it comes to the users, is what they should and shouldn't do, is really that piece gets forgotten about. Who else needs to be involved? And how long have we known about this? And because one of the pieces that gets forgotten about is the identification to getting these people in a room. People follow their regular SLAs, right? Well, we have 6 hours to do this. So,
Yep.
and let's see, what could be a 5th one here? Oh, usually it's, well, I thought assumptions actually come out. Well, I thought so-and-so had this, and I thought so-and-so had a plan.
It's them.
Yeah.
It's them.
Yeah, that always happens.
Yeah, those are all kind of good, really important issues, and they're all things that you can use to pull on threads. One of the
Yeah.
things when I ask them specifically about, well, what are the big things you're concerned about? I'm really looking them to name for me kind of their biggest threats. So, and let me give you the kind of the fun ones we've been working on lately that are actually really creepy, but fun in a weird way that you probably already know I like to have fun. One of them is deep fakes. So the idea of, what would be your 24-hour response for a deep fake, and who would be the players who would naturally come together already? And we pretty much named who they're going to be, right? Look at legal, blah, 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 all those folks. So that's one of them. The second would be some sort of ransomware or some form of malware, right? So, and then the next one would be encrypting your data. And then you may or may not have sufficient backups. The next one would be exfiltration of your data.
Now,
And
what do you mean by that?
so,
Just in case anyone doesn't know.
So in case anybody doesn't know, that's when they actually are in your systems, and then they have extracted sensitive data often, and then they're going to essentially ransom it. I mean, they could actually not install ransomware, but they can exfiltrate your data and then ransom it. So I ask people to really think about what are those sort of big picture issues that you're most concerned about. And then part of what I begin to do is I say, okay, great. Okay, you've got these issues that you think are your biggest threats. Oh, and the other one would be third-party vendors, of course, but everybody who went through CrowdStrike remembers that intimately, probably. So I would say identify 5, or is it easy number? 4 or 5 different topics, areas, concerns, and then really ask the question of the 5 or 6 people you've already identified that you think are going to work on this, and then have them develop their 24-hour, what they think their 24-hour activity list, their list is. Have you ever seen anybody do that before?
No. And I can guarantee every single one will point to somebody else where I thought somebody else starts it.
Which all gets down to
Guaranteed.
the activation issue, right? Like, how
Yeah.
do we even activate? And
Yeah.
so this is where I think we are, I actually feel really silly about this, Alex. I've done this for over 40 years, and I never really dawned on me, especially in companies that I've designed everything for, that they would ever have this doubt about what the heck they would do, right? But my God, they do. And so I've learned now in this sort of investigatory process that it requires me, even if I've designed all of their crisis management processes, I still need to make them have this conversation about this particular area. And so we have worked out kind of a simple recipe, if you will, about how to peel this apart. And so the first thing I ask my clients to do is identify for me the top issues that you think are either most likely, the ones that keep you up at night, the ones if they happened, it will just freak you out or your executives. And just keep it to 5. But there's some common themes that you and I, of course, would know. The whole idea of exfiltration of data, or the issue of data being encrypted, all of those things. Those are, that's kind of stuff we would do in anyway, right? But then the other things like the third-party vendor issues, or things related to the issues of a deep fake, which I can talk a lot about. But those are things that are significant. And so that's the first thing I would ask. What do you think that you would see in most of your clients? What do you think their top issues would be?
I think those,
yeah.
the really getting a hold of sensitive data is the biggest one, because I've worked, like you, work with banks, I've worked with utilities, I've worked with pharmacies, and pharmaceuticals, believe it or not, they are bringing drugs in legitimately, to make, our medicines and things like this. And if that got in the wrong hands, so there's all kinds of different pieces to look at it, but it's all sensitive. Even if you're not have overly sensitive information, let's say in a pharmaceutical, just getting your hands on the information of how some of that raw material is transported can cause unbelievable problems for you. So it's sometimes what you think might not be important is important to somebody else.
Well, to that end, and I've done quite a bit of work in pharmaceutical companies, and when we've done exercises where people actually get into their systems, and they may exfiltrate data, they might encrypt it, but while they're there, they change data, and they could change the recipe of a drug that's being made in a manufacturing facility. Like, instead of putting in 2 gallons of this, you're only going to put in, 100 ounces, or maybe you're going to put in 500 gallons, or all of a sudden you change something. And so that's something, it's like, oh my God, that could happen. Well, yeah, it could.
Yes.
So, yeah. So I think, to me, having that discussion with those 5 or 6 or 7 people or departments, that would be the first thing I would ask anybody to consider doing. What do we think our most likely threats are, and why? And That's worth digging into. And then if we all agree, okay, let's pick 5. If we agree on what those issues are, then the next thing I want people to do is then to develop what I call their 24-hour checklist. What would I do? What would I just thinking about what they would do and not anybody else. And I'm looking at the clock and it's almost 16 minutes. And I thought, maybe this could be the cliffhanger.
Yeah, let's take a break now and we'll come back and we'll continue on that thought.
I think so, yeah.
We're talking with Regina Phelps today about issues related to cyber response, and we will be right back. If you like that video, thumbs up. If you didn't like that video, thumbs down. But leave me a message and let me know your thoughts. Of course, don't forget to subscribe. And in the meantime, stay prepared, everybody.